Okay, we are now streaming again, and you can call your official regular meeting.
Okay, I'd like to everybody rise for the pledge. Lauren, do we have a picture of the flag? Fillmore, do you have a flag?
Oh,
Yeah.
saving the day.
Okay. Thank you, Fillmore. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it
for which I
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
and
justice
justice
and
for all.
for all.
Thank you. So I need, let's see, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the March 18th Board of Finance meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion. All in favor? Raise your hand. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. I'm going to forego my comments this evening. Citizen and finance member comment. Does anyone have any comments? Lauren, do we have anybody in the public?
So no one is raising their hand or typing a Q&A.
Okay, thank you. Board of Finance members, any comments?
Good job, Gene.
Thank you. Good job to all of us, all
Let's
three.
thank Lauren too. Nice job.
Yes.
Thank you, Lauren.
Okay.
The first order of business is to get an update on the Munis software implementation project, which has been probably the most painful project that I think our finance department has gone through. So Art, I'm going to turn it over to you to give us an update.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Art.
Yeah, I just wanted to take this opportunity to give you a quick update as to our implementation schedule. We've got some changes that we're making. Unfortunately, all of the remote access global pandemic complications that we've had here are causing us some delays. I'm very proud of all the work that's gone into this so far, and we are on schedule for a good portion of the implementation. Just to give you a quick refresh, we are replacing the Phoenix financial system, which includes all of the general accounting as well as HR and payroll. And we had originally had a legacy system that the support for which was about to end, scheduled to end on June 30th of this year. There was at the time no chance that they would extend it. They had already, they didn't think that they were giving us a short period of time, but it was at least half the amount of time that we would have probably needed. Typically an 18-month to 2-year implementation to roll out something of this magnitude. But we had basically just under a year to do it. So we put in a very aggressive schedule together, and the finance department, HR departments on both the town and school sides have just been absolutely killing it with a ton of work. We are scheduled and should be on target for a July 1st start to the financial system piece of it. So all of the general ledger chart of accounts, all of the work that goes into accounts payable, accounts receivable, all of that stuff, the budget building, all of that is on schedule with the fiscal year start July 1, 2020. There's Kristen. Kristen, the word chart of accounts should give you nightmares. I know all the crazy amount of work that's gone into this. They've just really been outstanding. And I think that the challenges of all the remote training for the end user community are going to be the thing that really drives this delay. We've got a schedule for January 1st now. We were able to secure maintenance support extension through Phoenix. The company is really Power School that owns Phoenix. And the Phoenix has been owned by multiple large companies for the past 10 years. It's been changing quite routinely. So anyway, we're going to push out the HR payroll implementation to start with the calendar year instead of the fiscal year. I've updated the Board of Education, I've updated the Board of Selectmen, and now it's just because it was a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that's why you guys are third on this. Poor Gene, through this spiel, at least this is your third time sitting through it, so thank you for that. I do want to point out that a lot is changing with HR in the event. Basically, a lot of employee self-service kinds of things are happening. It's a legitimate ERP solution. There's a lot of hours entry that will happen remotely by the employees themselves, leave requests, things like that. So to be able to deliver training remotely at this point to all of those employees that are going to need it, not being able to gather in large groups and in the foreseeable future, not being able to guarantee a July 1 for sure. It's imperative that we start the payroll on at least on a quarter. And I think that the calendar year, beginning of the calendar year is a very good time for us, because if we were given our druthers the first place, we would have scheduled it then. W-2s, 1099-Rs for retirees, other forms that are really, they're on a calendar year cycle with the federal government requirements. So I think that this, as I said, if we had our druthers, we would have scheduled financials to go on July 1 and payroll to start on January 1. At this point, that's where we believe we're going to end up. We have a strategy in place that we're building right now. Stacy, Heather Dobson, and Deb Millardo and I have been putting our heads together with the folks from Munis. We're meeting with them tomorrow as well. And we'll be going over just, the things that we cannot overlook in the process, how we're going to get from one system to another with the right kinds of timing, just making sure we've got all the I's dotted and T's crossed. But I do not anticipate a delay beyond that. But I wanted everyone to be aware of it, that the July 1 kickoff will be for the financial general accounting part only. And then the HR payroll we'll continue to run HR payroll through Phoenix until we're ready. This will also give us a little more opportunity to run more parallel runs. I think that the October, November, December timeframe is going to be great to have the extra opportunities to let everybody practice through those runs and really understand the system very well before we go live with payroll. Were there any questions for me on that? I just didn't want this to be a surprise to anybody, certainly.
No, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Art. And Art, if you could, I think the busing, you and I will talk. I'd like to give a response to some of those questions that came up. So if maybe you and I could talk and you could kind of summarize so we can get some information out to the public on that.
Yes, definitely. There was action taken last night at the Board of Education meeting that I'm sure you're aware of, that's consistent with the CARES Act and a contract amendment for Durham School Services specifically. So I'll be happy to work with you on that, Gene and
Okay,
Stacy.
do you want to update the board as long as we have you here on that?
Well, I'll leave it to Stacy to give you the projections in
Okay.
the end there, but the Board of Ed did approve an amendment to our transportation contract. It was reviewed thoroughly by the board's attorneys at Shipman and Goodwin, and it appears to be as good a deal as we can hope for. There should hopefully be reimbursement money available through the CARES Act, and it's basically a requirement of the governor's executive order. I think it was 7R. Specifically pertaining to contractors for transportation and other special education things. The amendment basically says that we will continue to pay a percentage of the daily average rates that we pay for home to school transportation. We're paying, our agreement is for 74% of the average daily rate. The intention is that it's only for direct expenses relating to keeping employees who deliver services to Madison. It's not to enrich the corporation and with any profits. It's only to keep people off unemployment. And it's really for business continuity. If we were to say we're going to resume school 2 weeks from now, they can't have laid off all their employees. It would be very difficult to get them back. So they'll be keeping the employees, maintaining all of the things they need to for those folks. They'll be keeping their mechanics, and the fleet has to be kept ready. But it spells out what's an acceptable expense. Our attorneys reviewed that list of expenses and, to make sure that if we are going to have some reimbursements available, all of our documentation will be in order, all of our expenses would be hopefully eligible in that.
Mhm.
I don't
Okay.
believe we can guarantee reimbursement on anything, but the 74%, and again, remember, that's just from now until the end of the year or from
Right.
the beginning of the closure. So it's 74% of 30%. So,
Okay. All right.
okay.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate it. Any questions from the board? Okay. Next, discuss and take action to approve a special appropriation request in the amount of $65,000 from the Board of Education to fund the public schools' external placements of special education reserve fund. So this is something we've been doing for several years now. When the Board of Ed returns funds to the town, they ask that a percentage of the return goes into, or an amount of the return goes into a reserve account for special ed expenses. As people know, we could have, with one outplacement, the special education budget could be blown out of the water. So this is a way in which we prepare for those unexpected expenditures. It's money they've returned to the town. It goes into, in totality, it goes into the undesignated fund balance until the audit is complete. And then we have the option at the request of the Board of Education to put additional funds into a reserve account for the specific purpose of funding any needs for special education, primarily for outplacements. Any questions? Let's move it, please.
So moved.
Second?
I'll
Any other
second.
discussion? Thank you. Any other discussion?
Are there any expectations, Jean, for additional costs coming up in this upcoming year for special education? What was the genesis for the request? Was it a specific need, or it just to pad the funds?
Right. No, it's just a reserve fund, and Board of Ed cannot from budget to budget, they cannot save funds. So the town has to do it for them. And so it's a special appropriation to put the money into the fund, and it's a special appropriation to take the money out of the fund. So when there's a need, they will come and they will ask for it. They've done it in the past, and then they just keep replenishing it with their funds, so that in an emergency, they know they can cover the costs and not go into the red with their special ed funds.
But if there's not a need, does it come back to the town?
So the money comes back to the town regardless. So at the end of every fiscal year, whatever funds are not spent go back to the town. They go back into the undesignated fund balance. At that point, there is, and Stacy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, at that point, the audit is done. And when the audit is complete, which is this year was in November, then we have the option to move, at the request of the Board of Ed, to move some of the money that they returned. And I believe they returned
143,000.
143,000. So it's been sitting, waiting for the audit to be complete. And now the Board of Ed is asking that we take $65,000 out of that and put it into a reserve account for any unknown special ed expenditures.
Yes, and just to clarify, they cannot remove money out of the reserve fund unless it goes through both boards, and the money stays in the reserve fund until it's needed. So it's just pretty much sits there until, hopefully never needed, but until it's needed.
And again, we've been doing this for years, and it has served the town well, and it has served the Board of Ed well.
And I think this is smart. And, as you said earlier, Gene, you never know with special education can really get away from you, for lack of better terms. So.
Mm-hmm. And I think for transparency, it's good also. The money is for special ed. It's put in a reserve for special ed. And if it's removed, it's clear that those funds will be used for special ed. And I just think for the public, it's also very transparent.
I have two questions. Refresh my memory, Stacy. is there a maximum, when we set this up, whenever it was, did we put a maximum that we would fund it at so much a year, as was explained, based on the returns and up until an X dollar amount? Is there a maximum in that regulation?
There wasn't. The regulation was developed in 2009.
Yeah.
There was a goal in mind at that point in time. However, when the Board of Ed returned the funds this year, there was a projection done of what a safe amount would be to hold into the reserve fund. And this amount, the 65,000, would bring up that reserve fund to $350,000,
Right.
which was a projected safety amount to be held in the reserve fund from the special ed department.
Okay, then a second question, was any, when was the last time we had to dip into that reserve fund?
2 years ago, I believe, and then we returned to money again last year.
Right.
Okay,
They
thanks.
replenished it. They took it 2 years and then replenished it.
Right.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor, raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you. What's the matter?
I was asking a question and not realizing I was muted, but that's fine.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. We can go back. We voted,
No,
but go
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. I just was, to Fillmore's question, is there like a target, kind of a steady target, or is it looked at each year? Like, is it, in terms of what they'd like to go into the year
So,
with?
right. So initially there was a target of 2 something. but
250,
then
yep.
Right. And then, but now based on new projections and new concerns, they've upped it to, I think you said 3.
350 based on what we know right now. So we do try to look at projections every year to see what a good estimated balance should be. I mean, that was 2009 that we were kind of trying to keep it around 250. But this year we did do some analysis and believe that 350 would be a good target balance.
Days, is that new students coming into the school system?
It could be a mix.
It could be,
Yeah.
yeah. There's no way to know.
Well, no, you did the projection off of something though, right?
Well, what an outplacement would be, I mean, lots of, what
Lots
we
of
have,
variables.
right, lots of variables. Who's in the district
Oh.
now, needs, assessments.
Yeah, we voted already, so
Okay.
we should move on.
All right. Next, discuss and take action to approve a line item transfer totaling $33,000.
So
Can I
moved.
get a second? Discussion. This is a normal, are we good? This is a
Who
normal
seconded that?
line
Was that
transfer.
Jude? Okay.
Oh, did you have, go ahead, sorry.
No, I
She
didn't know.
just seconded.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you. So this is a normal line item transfer that we do generally at the end of the year. Billy had, I believe in his maintenance account.
In his utility
Okay.
accounts, he had some excess. This is, like you said, Jane, this is recurring year over year. He had some excess in his various utility accounts. There was many that made up the 33,000, and he's moving them over to cover deficits in his maintenance accounts, just in various areas. But it's all within his department. And again, this is an annual line transfer, that process that we go through.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Next, so we discuss and take action to approve the following resolution. Be it resolved that in support of the Board of Selectmen prior action on March 9th, 2020, and on April 27th, 2020, the Board of Finance hereby approves a lease modification and extension agreement as modified by the Board of Selectmen granting Our Lady of Mercy Preparatory Academy of Madison a 1-year extension of the existing lease of the former Island Avenue School at an annual rent of $400,000 and an option to renew that lease for an additional year with the approval of a town meeting and in accordance with the governor's executive order 7cc. The board hereby finds that such action is necessary to permit the orderly operation of the town and that there is need to act immediately during the public health and civil preparedness emergency in order to prevent significant financial loss to the town. I need it moved.
So moved.
Second. Discussion.
I'm sorry, Justin, Justin.
Any discussion on this?
Yeah, so I just, I guess my question is that we as the Board of Finance really did not have any we didn't participate at all in the negotiation of the renewal of the lease or the concession of the $100,000 of the existing lease in place to the new $400,000 lease that has been approved by the Board of Selectmen. So if I could just understand a little bit more, is it we're approving that the Board of Selectmen gave the concession, and we are not approving that the Board of Finance approved that concession. Is that correct? You follow me, Jude, what I'm saying? For example, we as the Board of Finance, right, we're asking the town and the Board of Ed to come back and sharpen their pencil and do whatever they can to reduce their expenses. And here we have a revenue line item for the town, and we're giving a concession and offering a reduction of that revenue in the most difficult time that we're facing because of all the unknowns and all the challenges. I don't understand where that concession came in. And I'm just trying to say that personally, I don't believe we should be offering those types of concessions in this time period.
Lauren, do you want to jump in on that?
Sure. And Peggy's also raising her hand, so I can scoot her over to the panelist side as well. But essentially, what's happened here is because of the COVID-19 pandemic, because we're not really able to hold in-person meetings, the governor has issued executive orders that have given us some clarity on how we can move things forward. When it comes to certain items that were meant to go to town meeting, the governor has issued his executive order that says that when it comes to fiscal matters, the Board of Finance can move forward those items. It doesn't give you guys clarity on whether or not you can adjust those items, but that you can take the items that were already noticed to go to town meeting as they were noticed and move those forward without having to go to town meeting. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense, of what the purview that the state has offered. Ken, does that help?
From a process perspective, yes, it does. I just want, so from the Board of Finance perspective, all we're doing is voting on approving the process, not so much that we approve the reduction in the lease. Is that right?
Basically, what you guys are saying is the Board of Selectmen has brought this item to the town for a town meeting that can no longer happen. And because of that, we move the process forward. So you're not saying whether or not you personally agree with the lease, but that the Board of Finance brought this lease to the public. And now.
Board of Selectmen.
What's that, Justin?
Did you mean the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance brought it to the public?
The Board of Selectmen initially brought this to the public for a town meeting that no longer be held because of the pandemic. So now you guys aren't saying whether or not you are part of the lease negotiations or approving the lease as part of that negotiation, but you are approving that the matter was set to go to town meeting. It has to do with the finances of the town, and that move the item forward because the town meeting cannot.
So, yeah, I hear, I think, Ken, she's basically agreeing with you that we're agreeing to the form, but not necessarily the function of the terms of the lease.
So
We're just-
if you go back to thinking, we are the financial piece of the town. We're not the planning piece. We didn't negotiate the lease. We just brought the lease and we're taking it in the budget process or around the budget process to the public, but we did not negotiate the lease. That was not within our purview.
Because, you've got people in the town asking for a 0% increase. If we put $100,000 back in the revenue line, that might do something to assisting with that. So,
And
But
again, right.
I understand the process related function of the Board of Finance now. And Lauren, yes, you did answer my question. So thank you for that.
Good. Any other questions?
I have a comment.
Did-
Penny, you brought up two things. You brought up the process, and then you also brought up the.
Jude, we
I can
can't
barely
hear
hear
you. We can't hear you, Jude.
Oh, is that better?
Much.
Sorry. Because Kenny brought up not only the process, but also described this as a concession and didn't agree with that portion of it. I don't know if I would describe it as a concession. We were not part of the negotiation because that's in the realm of the Board of Selectmen. But the Republican Aaron Dukes was one of the negotiators, as was Al Goldberg, the Democrat. Together, they negotiated it. They brought it to the Board of Selectmen, who unanimously voted in favor of this lease. Now, Kenny, I'm with you. I wish they got a lease for $1 million, but I'm not going to sit here and take pot shots at them, not having sat through the negotiations and understanding the factors that went into it. I did have questions, so I went to people on the Board of Selectmen and I asked them, why is this $100,000 less? I got to a point where I'm comfortable with it. And Kenny, I would just suggest that from now on, before a meeting, you go ahead and do that before you criticize their negotiations. I don't think that's very fair.
Let's relax, because the whole Republican Dem thing is nonsense.
It's not a Republican Dem thing.
So
This is
I want
only
to be
about
clear.
process.
This is our role is to move it forward from, we are not the planning mechanism. We did not negotiate it. I think Kenny agreed to that. So unless there's something more significant to have a conversation about, we have our role from the governor is to put the budget, is to put the lease forward. It is all agreed upon. We did not negotiate it. It's not our role to negotiate it. I don't think anyone was taking pot shots. I think we just were asking a question. So if we could just move along and keep this civil and just try to get to the point of what our role is, and our role is to vote on this.
Well, I'm sorry if anyone,
any
if
other-
anyone considered anything I said uncivil. Kenny, you know how much I love you. I'm just a little disappointed. You know I do. I'm just a little disappointed with the way you kind of brought this up.
Well,
That's all.
All right.
I'll get
Any
into
other comments other than Kenny and the love fest
I'll just
between the two?
I'll just add,
Go ahead.
I may agree with Kenny personally, but we weren't there, we didn't negotiate it. So I hear Jude's point. The way I'm looking at it, just for the benefit of others, kind of like the budget, we're trying to listen to the town. We've been given a burden that none of us really want. So we're trying to take in all the comments, we're trying to digest them. We're essentially trying to put ourselves in the heads of all of the townspeople as best we can, as impossible as that is. So my personal look at this is, we're seeing this as if there was no background. We don't know what happened in the past. This is now in front of us, literally only today or yesterday. And we're looking at it, and my way of looking at it is saying, okay, this would have gone to town meeting, and what probably would have happened. So my prediction would have been, had it gone to town meeting, it probably would have gotten approved one way or the other, either by enough people there to approve it, or by more likely, or just as likely, not enough people, and then it would have passed by default. So that's just to share with others. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. And I think in that sense, I might have some questions like Kenny does, but thinking that if not for this pandemic, we would not have been involved, and this probably would have gone ahead and gotten approved through the normal channels. So
that's a very good point, Justin. That's a very good point.
Good. So all in favor of approving, say aye with raise.
I approve the
Opposed?
process.
Abstention, motion
Abstention.
carries.
Abstention, you got
yes,
that, Gene,
John,
right?
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Motion carries. Thank you. Discuss and take possible action on the 2020-21 budget. We will not, I promised Stephen Dowler we would not, so we will not be taking a vote on that this evening. We're not ready for it. I believe there's too many variables that we still have to look at. Is there any objections to tabling that till the May 5th?
No objection.
Do you want a
Thank you.
motion?
No.
I don't think you need a motion.
We don't.
Okay.
It just says possible action.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, review the financials. Stacy, is there anything?
So the only thing I do have is just an update on our current COVID expenditures, just to kind of give you guys an idea of where we are right now. This is now project through the end of the fiscal year, but eventually we're going to need to do a special appropriation to move money to support these funds. So I just kind of wanted to give you an update, and I'll give you a more realistic update next month. But right now, the town side, we have about $80,000. That includes supplies as well as technology licenses for Zoom meetings as such, like we're doing right now. As far as the Board of Ed, we have about $100,000. That includes all of the distance learning, the curriculum, some other little miscellaneous supplies in regards to the distance learning, as well as custodial supplies. So right now we're at about 180,000. We are projecting a little bit more on the Board of Ed side. Our hope is with the savings in transportation, as Art talked about, that we're paying now 74% a day of the daily rate versus 100%, that we'll have some savings that we could line transfer over on the Board of Ed side. So hopefully the special appropriation that we'll be looking at in the next month or two will just be the town. And right now, like I said, that's about $80,000. And I'll continue to update you. If it changes drastically between this meeting and the next meeting, I'll let you know. Otherwise, I will give you a more complete update next Board of Finance meeting.
Good. Any questions?
Yes, sorry if you said it, Stacy, but might there be any, might there be any potential offsets on the town side where we might get lucky and come out, kind of a wash or?
As far as offsets, as for like revenue streams?
No, just maybe savings.
Or line transfers.
Yeah, saving somewhere else.
Absolutely. We're going to have to look at that when we come up with the total costs or projected costs. We'll look within the budget. We do have the contingency line item that is still out there. We have our snow removal that has been lower than we expected. We had a pretty warm winter. So before we do take any money from the undesignated fund balance, we will certainly look at options to try to line transfer within. So I'll definitely get you a better picture at your next meeting.
But,
and as far as any revenue streams, FEMA, I'm not counting on any of that for this fiscal year. It's going to take a while. From what I remember, when I first came, we were dealing with Sandy and Irene, and that took a couple of years to get the reimbursement. So I'm not relying on that. And when that comes in, that will be great. But for now, we're going to just have to look at our funds within.
Two comments on this, Stacy. Back a few minutes ago when we were doing the line item transfers for Billy, he was paying for a lot of his little nickel and dime maintenance things from various utility bills, because I guess it was a light winter, didn't have to heat as much. Maybe the lights haven't been on at town hall as much, etc. I'm guessing that on the Board of Ed side, they've got some utility savings as well, which could be, they can line transfer those into this COVID situation. And then another comment about what you were saying, that we may have additional savings on the town side from snow and so forth, but I don't think we can transfer money from snow removal, which comes under Public Works, into say the health department or something. Isn't that beyond the scope of our line item transfers?
Yeah, Fillmore, I think you know, all bets are off in a state of emergency, as you know.
Okay,
Yeah, if we decide not to take it as snow removal and to transfer it over to our COVID expenses, it's kind of just a mechanism. The money
Yeah.
will go into the undesignated fund balance and then come out of it. So it would be a wash.
yeah,
It's-
I understand, I understand that. And I know that you and Kristen like to move those, add to this one and subtract from that one. So I'm just giving you something to do there.
Thank you. Yeah, and we did, the Board of Ed did last night approve a line transfer from utilities to certain maintenance projects as
Okay,
well. So just so you know, that did happen last night at the Board of Ed meeting.
Fillmore, I just would make one comment that under the declaration of local emergency, the first select person does have the authority to make financial transactions happen if it's related to the emergency declaration.
okay, that's good.
So we would be able to
Thank
do
you.
what we need to do under that.
Okay,
Thanks, Peggy. Okay, any other comments on that? Citizen comments. Lauren, anybody in the queue?
There are a couple with their hands raised. Before I get
Okay.
to those, you do have one comment in the Q&A. I'm happy to read it. It's from
Sure.
Robert Tisello of 296 Bartlett Drive. He states, if I had an opportunity to vote on these budgets, I would vote no on both. My concerns are that we have never seen any savings in the education budget despite taking a school offline last year, and a town budget increase of 6.5% in these times of great economic uncertainty seems egregious. I note particularly the salary increases in several departments, in particular, the 6.5% increases for the BOS and for Parks and Rec. If these are contractual agreements, you might consider breaking and renegotiating those contracts. Extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures. I don't know anyone else getting a 6.5% raise this year if they are lucky enough to still have a job. And that is the end of his Q&A.
Thank
I
you.
believe Terry is on doing your minutes. Terry, if you click in the Q&A, you can copy and paste that into the official record. I'll start with the attendees now that have their hands raised. The first is Bruce Wilson. Bruce, you will have to unmute yourself.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Bruce.
Hi, Bruce.
So as you folks consider all of this input from the hearing and from the comments tonight, I just wanted to leave you with some data, and I'll get this to Lauren so that you can see it. From the state of Connecticut, there is some week-by-week initial jobless claims broken out by town. And February looks a lot like the preceding 5 years, 7, 4, 4, 8 people per week. March 8th, 20 people. March 15th, 244 people. March 22nd, 211 people. March 29th, 187 people. So these are all new claims each week. So these are cumulative numbers, not repeating numbers.
Is that town of Madison, Bruce?
That is the town of.
Oh,
So
Bruce.
these are people who lost their jobs. 244 in 1 week, 211 in the following week, 187 the week after that. It does settle down. April 5th, it was only 79 people who filed employment. And the most recent week, April 12th, is 20. My point is, just as not spared infections and we've not been spared death, we've not been spared the economic impact to the town. And I think this is another piece of data that you folks need to take into consideration as you consider the budget. And I appreciate this is not the way that that you folks like to have seen this happen. It's not the way that we on the board to see it happen, but we do it. It's very important that it gets done. Governor's provided a mechanism via you folks to do that. So I will send this information on to Lauren so that you all have it.
Is that the same information that Ryan sent earlier today?
Have it, Bruce, but thank you.
Yeah.
Next.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The
Lauren,
next,
oh,
oh, sorry.
I just have a quick comment.
Well, can we just
yeah,
wait?
that's-
Peggy?
Yeah, I
let's
didn't know
wait.
if there was anybody else. I can't see.
Yeah,
if-
go ahead, Lauren.
Yep, there's a couple. So the next is Gus Horvath, who promised he was not going to make comment this week.
He did, and he lied.
Gus, you'll have to unmute yourself.
You're still muted, Gus.
Can you hear me now?
There you
There
go.
you go.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Alas,
Gus
Hi,
Horvath,
Gus.
34 Aylesbury Circle. In reference to, I don't want to add to the confusion, but the reference to the Island Avenue lease, in my reading of it shows that the folks who are leasing the building are now going to be responsible for more expenses of operating that building than they did under the previous lease. And I don't know whether those expenses will equal the 100,000 in the reduction of the lease payment or not, or more than that. But that is one of the items that I picked up, and I don't know whether that is the reason for that. But I'm grateful for the $400,000. I would rather that you guys approve that and not accepted the money at all. And I don't know what it would cost the town of Madison then to maintain that building for another year. So, all in all, I think it was a worthwhile position for the Board of Selectmen to take, and I commend them for it. Thank you.
Thanks, Gus. Anyone else, Lauren?
The last comment comes from Katie Stein.
That was
Okay.
inadvertent. I did not mean to.
Please say hello, Katie, that's all.
Hi, nice to see you all.
There you go.
Appreciate being here. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
That's the best
Those we
kind of
like.
comment.
Those we like. I think Peggy wanted to say.
Liaison reports and first selectman.
Okay.
report.
I apologize because I didn't realize it was on the agenda. I don't have it printed out, so.
That's okay.
Well, I just wanted to refer to the lease real quickly. I understand that your board has not had the time to really dig deep into the details and the background on this that our board did. But I just want to assure you that we spent, 3 months negotiating this. We had 8 executive sessions. And I gave an extensive public statement on March 9th when we approved this about why we ended up where we were. And also your board received a copy of this on March 16th. And so I feel that I'm happy to answer any questions offline about it to give you further comfort about the lease. And also if any member of the public is concerned about it, and I, feel free to email me through my email address on the website, because I think that there's a lot of background here, and I'd happy to share my views on that if there's anybody that's concerned about it. And I want to thank the board for moving it forward, because I think at the end of the day that this is something that has an immediate impact to help the town get through this next difficult year. And I appreciate all the work that the 3 boards have done together to keep down and minimize expenses as much as we can without having major disruptions to our services to the community. And, I think that we'll all be very mindful of this next year and continue to collaborate closely together and be respectful of all the economic insecurity that our residents face. So I appreciate all the hard work you guys are doing, the hard work that the Board of Education has put into it. And I know we're all working for the betterment of the town. And I look forward to sharpening our pencils even more over this next year.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Peggy.
Peggy.
Thanks,
you.
Peggy.
Any other liaison reports?
yeah.
Fillmore.
Very briefly, from the library board, 2 items. They did apply for this federal PPP, payroll protection plan, back a couple of 3 weeks ago. Unfortunately, all the money that we were reading in the papers was gone, and they did not get any. So, but they're in line, hopefully, for this new tranche that has come forward. So keep our fingers crossed that maybe they can get some money from the PPP plan. The second item is that the capital campaign, they're continuing to work that down. I think last month, I reported that they were short about 250 million or there, or thousand, excuse me, 250,000 or thereabouts. They're now down to 221,000. They got some more funds in from one of their events here recently. So that's all I had from the library.
Thank you. Any other liaison reports? So now I just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second,
Thanks, everyone.
all in favor?
Thank you.
Take care, guys. Goodbye.
Take care. Be safe.
Night.
Thank you.
Oh, hey, Stacy. Stacy,
Yes.
Stacy, you're up.
but before our, could you get out to us an update of the fund balance projection, you know, how that stands and your estimate for the end of the year and so on, because we'll need to have that in front of us when we make our decisions on the 5th.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye, everyone.